Hi everyone, Macman here. So this is going to be part 2 in the little series I'm doing on case prep and loading for 30-06. So you saw in the earlier videos we've done the depriming, the sizing, we've measured the lengths, and we've cleaned all the primer pockets out, and obviously we checked the lengths. These were all good to go. All these in this other pot on the other side here were too long, so we're going to trim them. So I've already set my trimmer up. So this is the Henderson precision trimmer. It's a really nice trimmer. I do a lot of long range shooting, and you've seen some of the rifles I've got, so I decided to invest in one of these really nice case trimmers. So it trims, and then it deburrs and does all the chamfering all in one process. So like the old version I had, my trimmer would trim, and then I had to go in and clean the inside, deburr it and chamfer everything. But this does it all in one process. So we have the 30 cal cutting head in there, all preset, and I've set up the length, so this will only go in to a certain point, and once it hits that bolt, that's going to give us the exact length. I've changed the collet out so it holds the 30-06 case, and it's just a matter of putting the piece of brass in, holds it in tight. Starting it up is going to get a bit loud. You bring it in onto the pilot, and then slowly onto the cutting. And there you go. That has trimmed the brass. Let me just get my calipers. So as you saw in the earlier video, we got the caliper set at 2.494. Where we are today, 2.494. Now I've trimmed these, and you can see they're coming in and they're going into the calipers. Perfect. And if you can see there, hopefully you can see on there okay, so it's trimmed it. You can see it's just chamfered the inside, and it's chamfering the outside as well. It does a really nice job. Let's do one more. So you just put it into the holder, just tighten up the handle which grips the piece of brass. You can start that up. Just bring it onto it nice and slow. And again, we can do the measure. You can see it's falling in line where we want to be. And a nice trim, nice clean trim, and chamfered and deburred and everything all in one go. So if I was going to be doing this on my precision rounds, like I said, these are just going to be for plinking rounds. If I was going to be doing this on my precision rounds, I would be setting this to the low spec which it says in the book. So these maximum length are 2.494, and it says to trim to 2.484. So if this was going to be a precision setup, I'd have this set so it trims it exactly to 2.484, and I'd go through and I wouldn't even bother measuring them. I would just go through and I would trim every single one. And that's what I tend to do on my precision stuff, on my 308 precision rifle, my 7mm mag, my 300 Win mag, and my 3 straight lapel. So they'll all get trimmed and they'll all be the same length. But I'm not too worried, because we're just making these rounds up just to go and have some fun, just go and shoot them out in the desert or on the range. So let's just go through. I'll just go through and set this, and you can see how this works in real time. just by turning the handle a little bit on the back here. Hopefully you can see that. By turning the handle a little bit, just turn this a little bit so you can see. So I just turn the handle, which opens up the collet enough. Hold the piece of brass square, just turn the handle back, trims it, undo the handle, it falls into the hopper, and put the next one in. See, it's going in, we're set at 2.494, they're going in there perfect, they're dropping in, and we're getting a really nice cut, nice clean cut on them. Chamfering, deburring all in one go. You can see it's quite a quick process. You can get through a lot of brass. Doesn't take long to do. All you're doing is you're dropping it into the holder, unscrew the knob, it falls out, unscrew the handle, pop another one in, holding it square, tighten it up, out, drops in. So like I said, this is already preset for 30 cal, and we've put the 30 cal or 30-06 adapter in the back of it. And there's a bolt here which is just hand tight. And if I unscrew this out, you can see how it sets up. So there's a preset threaded bar inside here, and then all we do is they supply you these bolts with the lock nuts on them, and all you're doing is you're adjusting this length here. This is going to be adjusting the length for your trim, and once it's set with this lock nut, it's not going to move, and all you do is you label these up and label this up 30-06. So next time I go to 230-06, this will already be preset. I've just got to put it in, and it's a matter of just dropping it in through the bottom hole, lining it up into the threaded holder, and then just wind it in by hand. You don't need to use wrenches or anything. You don't want to adjust that lock nut any further because it's preset to where you want it. You just bring it in, comes to a stop, you just nip it up with your hand. You don't need to go pliers or anything, just nip it up with your hand. So that's going to already be preset. Switch it on. And there you go, straight into the calipers. Everyone is coming out exactly the same length. That bolt doesn't move, it just sits there. It's just coming up to, it actually stops this, see this unit moving back and forth. That bolt just goes in and it hits and it comes to a stop. You can't go, no matter how hard you push, you can't go any further. It's hitting that bolt, so you can't trim it anymore. And trims and chamfers and everything. So let me just finish these off and I'll bring you back, guys. So we're just coming to the end. I think I got 2 or 3 more to do. Okay, and the last one. And there you go. There's the bunch done. They can be added to the rest of them. Primer over there. So we've got we've got them all done now. So all this batch has all been deprimed, sized, all the primer pockets have been done, all been nicely cleaned. They've been trimmed, we've checked the length, all the ones that needed to be have been trimmed, and they've been chamfered and deburred. So all this now is ready to go back into the cleaner, and they'll go in the tumbler for an hour just to get all the lube and everything off, and then we can go in and we can use the Dillon 650, and we'll go up and we'll go ahead and we'll go and load some of these. I have got another batch about this size in the cleaner now, which I've got to go through the whole process again, so I'll get that done off camera, and once we've got them all done we can come back and we'll start doing the loading process. So I will catch you once I get all that done. Okay, so we've had all the brass out of the dry tumbler and it's ready over there. So now we need to get the 650 ready to load some 30-06. So at the moment it's set up in 44 mag for pistol, so we'll go through the whole setup now to change it. So first we need to remove the tool head, take the light out, pull the pins, pull the safety bar off, and the tool head slides straight out. So there's the 44 mag tool head straight off. And then we have to remove the tube, so the tube can come out, case feeder tube. Bring it back down. And a lot of you guys know I like to keep the boxes handy, so I keep the empty box, which is the 44 mag conversion, and behind it I've got the 30-06 conversion ready to go. So we start off by, we can take these case feeder and everything adapters out. They can come out and go in the box. The little aluminum one, the guide, which is underneath here, we can unscrew that and take that out. Hopefully you can see that coming out. So that one comes out, goes in the box. And then we've got three little pins, locating pins for the shell holders. So these pins need to come out. So we've got the pins out, they drop in the box. And then we can raise the tool head up, undo the lock-in bolt, can drop the tool head back down, and then we can take the center bolt out, remove that, remove the spring, and pop the shell plate out. And then there's a little aluminum guide in here we need to pull out as well. This is 44 mag, so that comes out as well. So I think that is everything for 44 mag removed. So that box can be closed up and put aside. Normally at this stage I would pull off the whole primer tube mechanism and clean it, but because I didn't run many 44 mags, it's still pretty clean, so I'm not going to bother this time. I will do it on the next caliber change. And the whole top, we can just give it a wipe down. You can blow it off a little bit, so there's nothing there, but it is pretty clean from when I was doing the 44 mags. So the only other thing we need to change is this guide at the back here, because it's in two positions. You have a position for pistol and a position for rifle, and it's got a different cut on it, and I will show you that now. I'm just going to pull it off. This lifts off, it's held on by a little screw, and if you see here, it's got one long slide and one short slide. The long slide is for pistols, the short slide is for rifles. So you need to make sure that this is pointing forward towards the tool head. So this is the rifle side. So all it does is we just pull it off, you can pop it back on, start the little bolt by hand to make sure that you're not damaging the thread, because there's only a small little heavy coil thread in there. And then with the Allen key we can just go in and nip that up. Hand tight, it doesn't need to be tight, it doesn't need to be super tight, it doesn't move anywhere. And I'm just going to move that back a touch, it's just a little bit too far forward. Just loosen it, push it back a touch, tighten that back up. And I think we're good there. So that's done. So that's with the short slide pointing out towards the equipment. From there, we get the little aluminum, like the little top part adapter. We just put that into the bottom here. Again, hand tight first, and then with a little hex key, you can just put a little touch on. It doesn't need a lot, just a little nip up, and that's fine. And then the little case feed adapter that goes in there with the whites pointing forward, and then the main tube, and then we can re-put the tube back on. So it just pops into the black adapter and it clips on under the case feeder. In the case feeder, I've already changed it from large pistol to large rifle plate, so that's already done. So that's good up there. All the feed tube is all done. Now we can start on the bottom end. So you get your aluminum guide that the brass runs on, that can just go in and sit straight in there. Get the shell plate, pop that on, and then with the spring, return the spring back to its position, slots into a little hole on the side, like that, and then the bolt, I'm just going to put the bolt in hand tight to start with. So we take it down, make sure it locates rightly in the pin. So I take it down to tight, so it's just hand tight, and I turn it back about 1/4 of a turn. And when you raise it up, then it should be turning. That one's just a little bit loose, so tighten it back up. Okay, so just want a little bit of movement in there, not too much. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to tighten up that lock bolt. Again, doesn't need to be super tight, just snugged up. And then we can bring this down slowly, bring it down and rotate the shell plate a couple of times like we're doing here, just so that everything is moving. I think it's still a little bit loose, so what we do is we go back up and do the lock nut, bring it back down and tighten that back up all the way down. There you are. Now we can see it's dragging. Now I can turn it back maybe 1/4 of a turn, and there you go. That feels almost perfect there. And bring it back down, rotate it just a couple of times just to make sure that it's turning freely, it's not gripping or dragging. You can do it by hand as well, and there's just a little bit of movement in there, and that's perfect. So that's done there. The little locating pins, they just drop in. Can put them in for now, but we will remove them again in a bit when we're setting up the dies and everything. So that's done, and all that's left then is to drop the tool head into position and put the 2 pins in and pop the light back on, so the light illuminates everything in here. And then the safety rod, put the safety rod in, hook it back on, push it forward as if you're setting the primer, and check the spring. You don't want to be too tight on the spring, just needs to come down and almost coil down on itself, but just a little bit of play there. So there you go, and you can operate it, make sure everything is working fine. That all looks good. These primers, pop them in the tray over here. So there you go. So that's the setup of the caliber change. Everything's ready. Next thing to do, we'll go through and we'll set everything up. Okay, so some of the products we're going to be using tonight. We're going to be using these Hornady 150 grain boat bullets. So they can go in here. The powder we're going to be using is IMR 4831. So I'm going to add some of that to the hopper. So we can fill the hopper up. And the primers we're going to be using are going to be Federal 210s, and we're going to be using the mixed brass that we prepped earlier. So we're going to be using that mixed brass as well. So that's all the products we're going to be using. So with this powder measure, this is the old version that Dillon make. So let me bring you in on here and show you. So with the old version, it only has the one plate for pulling down, and for the safety side it runs two little springs. So if you excuse me, so you can see the two springs going down here. So when it operates the bar and pulls the bar in to drop the powder, these springs are what pull it back. And if I show you the newer versions that you get from Dillon, you can see this got two plates. So this is your safety lock plate. I'll be honest with you, I really prefer this one, especially for rifle calipers. It's a lot easier to use. I really like how it works. It's very consistent, and I really do like this single bar with the springs rather than this setup. You can still find these older ones on eBay and places like that, and I would recommend you getting one of these just to try, because they are really good. But if anything goes wrong with this and you have to take it into Dillon and they have to replace it under warranty for you, you're going to get one of the new ones. They don't make these old ones anymore. So if you can get hold of them for doing the rifle powder drops, it's great. It works really well, and I much prefer them. Okay, so that's the powder measure. So let's bring you back down here. Zoom out. So I'm going to bring in a small set of scales, and we need a primed piece of brass. And then we're going to weigh that piece of brass and get it zeroed on the scales. And we can put that into the shell holder. And because we've just added powder, we need to cycle it just a couple of times to make sure that the powder is stable. So I like to do two drops and then dump the powder. We're going to check the scales again to make sure we're zeroed, and we're zero on the scales, and then I'm going to drop a powder charge and we'll check that. So going by data from the lineman book and off the website for the IMR powder, is calling for 55 grains minimum up to 61 grains maximum compressed. Personally, I don't compress loads. I know a lot of people do and they get good results from them. I'm not one to compress loads. I'm always going to keep mine below compressed loads. And for this batch of ammo, we're going to do 55 grains. I've shot these at the lowest grain at 55 grains, and they've shot perfect and great groups. These are just going to be plinking rounds, so I can take the neighbours out and have some fun out in the desert. So we're going to just load them at 55 grains at the lowest setting. So if I just bring this across, I'll show you. So at the moment we're at 49.80 here, and we need to be at 55 grains. So obviously we're going to have to go up a little bit. So what we're going to do, we're going to drop that powder back in, and the bolt on the back where it adjusts, we're going to turn it about a turn in this direction. This is adding the amount of powder, and again we can put the case back into the holder, and then we cycle it again. So we're going to do 2 cycles to get that powder stabilized. Probably 1 would be fine, but I tend to do everything, I just do it twice. And then we can drop the powder, and then we're going to measure this one. You can see we've come up to, hopefully you can see that, 52.3. So we still need to go a little bit more. So we can bring this back. The adjusting bolt on the side, we'll do another turn. We're going to drop that powder, make sure the case is still zeroed. Yep. And let's do a couple of cycles. And then we'll do the third one, which is going to be our measurement. We can put that on the scale. If you can see there, we are at 54.96, so we're just about there. So with it being 55, I am going to go up just a little bit, because I don't want to be under what they're speccing us. So I turn to just a little bit over. It's not going to be a problem, because we've got a lot of leeway we can use. So just a couple of cycles. And then the third one we can measure. And we're at 55.64. So I'm going to dump the powder again, place the brass back on the scales. Hopefully you can see that it's all zeros. And we just do one more check. And that one's going up to 56, so it's stabilized a bit more. Let me check one more. Zero it. So we're at 56.28. So it's just a matter of turning back a little bit. And let's check it again. It's just walking up there, getting to where you want to be. And if you go past it, drop it back down a little bit. And then I'll check this one. 55.28. So I'm happy with that. I wanted to be at 55 point wherever it falls. Check one more. And see, that one's floated a little bit down, but we're floating around the 55. There's a little bit of inconsistency with the powder drop, but we're close enough. So that's how I'd set up for the powder. And the other thing you want to be checking before, I should have said before, but mine was already set up. So when you bring your shell, just bring this over a little bit so you can see a bit better. When you bring your case up into the powder measure, if you're watching the bar, what you want to do is you bring your case up, and as it starts to operate the bar, you can see the bar going forward. So when your handle of your press hits the bottom, where it is now, you can see the bar has just finished travelling. So that way you're not putting any more pressure on the case, you're not sizing the neck of the case, you're not flaring at all. everything is all good. You're not it's where it needs to be, and then you can drop it back down. I'm just going to do one more check. 55.0. So we're right on there. So now we're going to do the die. We're going to set the seating die. So what you need to do is just unwind the die back a little bit out, so you're not going to be seating it too low. And it's calling for, let's just check on in the book, for 155 grain. It's calling for 3.20. Looking through the specs of the book here, 3.20 or even 3.210. But because there is the groove, the cannier groove on these, we'll see how that falls as we start to measure it. So I've taken the die up a little bit. Just seat the bullet on the top, bring it slowly up into the die, and seat where we are. And as it comes down, just pop it out. And you can see there we are at, to start off with, we're at 3.370. So we're way long, and you can also see we've got quite a bit to go before it comes down onto the cannier groove. So what I'll do is I'm going to turn the die down a little bit, reseat it again, and you can see we've come down a little bit. I like to always keep checking. So we're at 3.308. Pop it back in, bring the die a little bit down again. So now we're at 3.262. 3.262. 3.262. And 3.20, so we can go down a bit more again. .220 or 3.223. Go a little bit more again. So we are smack on 3.200, which is calling for in the book. And also you can see now we're down, so that we're sitting in the groove. So when we crimp, we'll be in the groove. So with that bullet length being correct, bring it back up into the die, keeping the die in the same position. We just want to gently tighten up the lock nut. Try not to move the die. Just a little nip up so it doesn't move. You can bring it down, and then the last one, the crimp has already been set. It was set from last time, so we just bring the round up into there, and hopefully you can see, let's just see. So hopefully you can see the crimp. See if I can get it to come to focus properly, guys. So hopefully you can see there that it's crimped just like a little medium crimp. It doesn't need a lot. You don't want to go too heavy on that crimp, just so that it folds in nicely onto that little groove. And there you go. That is absolutely perfect. So that has just come right. So what we can do now is, we have primers loaded up in the tube. We know the powder is right, so put the lid on the powder, switch the case feeder on, and it'll start to drop the shells. And then once we have a few in, then we can start running it. So the first station in the tool head is empty because we've already done all the sizing and everything beforehand. We've popped the primer, cleaned the primer pockets, sized and trimmed everything to length on a different video, so we're keeping within the YouTube guidelines. So we've done all that, and all we're doing is the last couple of processes to finish off. So I have split it over a couple of videos, so we're keeping within the guidelines. So the case tube is full, so we can just start to cycle through. So the first one comes down, you can see the brass locates. As we bring it up, keeps rotating around. So now it's into the primer station, so we just push forward to set the primer. And you can see primer's been set just below the surface in there, and it sits really in there, just about perfect. As we draw it up, we can drop the powder, set the primer on the next one, round it comes round, set the primer, seat the bullet, set the primer, and this last, now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be dropping powder, seating and crimping. So that's done there, and as you come round, the completed one falls into the bin and everything's ready. So in real time, this is what it looks like. Don't need to go stupidly fast. Just nice constant speed going through, making sure you always set that primer. And always feeling for any stiffness, any dragging, anything that feels out of the ordinary. And there we go. So there you go, guys. So you can see we went from the earlier video where we did all the processing and prepping to this where we've done the caliber changeover, setting the dies up, setting the powder up, and going through and finishing off. So there you go. So that should be the end of part 2, guys. Let me just get a piece here. So just to show you, we got the L.E. Wilson case gauge. They drop in, and as you run your finger over them, you can feel they're just below the surface of the two higher points. So you run across here, you can just feel it's just below, and then the lower point, if you run your finger across there, it's just above. You can feel the case just above and just below. So that's pretty much perfect. And it just comes out. I just get another one just to try. And there you go. Perfect. Perfect. And just drop straight out. And there you go. So hopefully we can get the rest of these done, and I will take them out to the range and go and have some fun with the neighbours. We'll go and shoot these up. Hope you really enjoyed these videos, guys. If you do, please like, share and subscribe. Hit that bell notification. Don't forget to join me 8 o'clock Eastern on a Monday night for the live streams. And with that said, we'll catch you on the next. Thanks, everybody.